Brian, can you go ahead and introduce yourself in your own words for the audience?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a colorist in St. Louis, Missouri. Not where every colorist is from. Obviously, there's a much higher concentration there where you are in LA. But I'm the lead colorist at one of the best post-production studios here in the Midwest called Brute and Strobe. It's been around for about 40 years. So basically everything that comes through this place, whether it's a commercial, a music video, short film, a feature film, I get to do all the finishing color work on it, and a lot of the VFX and other finishing tasks as well. So that's kind of what it involves.
Very nice. How long have you been with the studio for? Where did you go to school? Are you self-taught?
Yeah. So I've been here for about 2 years. I was freelance before that. I worked at another post-production studio before that, and even before that, I was a kind of the one-man band thing. You know how kind of a lot of us start out in this industry. So, and then before that, I was in news for quite a long time as a sports anchor and as a play-by-play broadcaster and as a writer as well. That's where I began my journey up in Alaska, and then moved down to the States, obviously to pursue bigger work, better work. So that's kind of how it all came to be.
So you're from Alaska originally?
Yep, absolutely.
Very nice. Some of my best friends are from Alaska. You guys have a much calmer perspective on things. Although I hear it gets dark pretty early out there.
Well, yeah, it depends. It's dark all winter long. You go to work and it's dark, and you're done at 5 and it's dark, and that's just kind of what you get used to. But hey, now I'm in a dark room all day long, so it's like nothing changed, right?
Very nice. So from Alaska to St. Louis, Missouri, and now you've been with your studio, and now if a feature film, music video, you name it, you get to see it, you get to work on it.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the only colorist within full-time colorist. This is what I do full-time. I'm the only person within, I don't know, quite a long ways, at least 500 miles or so. I mean, there's some up in Chicago and such, but there's not a whole lot around. So what that means is I get a lot of the very, very best work out there, which is awesome. And the way things are today, I'm getting amazing work from the coasts, from Europe, from all over the world. Stuff comes in. People have seen my work through Instagram and other places, and so I get asked to do a whole lot of crazy stuff. It's never the same thing every day, and that makes it really exciting and fun.
That's really awesome that you have that perspective on it, because, a lot of people, when they're working on the computer and they're working on these projects, it's a lot of back and forth. You can really be looking at it and working on it. It could be the same thing for 10 seconds of a clip, but you can be there for hours and hours, and time can really go by. And if you don't allow yourself to have that perspective where there's always something new to be offered, something new to be learned, it can get really difficult to carry through that process. So it's really inspirational to see how you make it work for yourself.
I appreciate that, but yeah, no, it's funny. I like to say that every shot, in many ways, is like a snowflake. I mean, every shot is very unique. It requires its own approach. But when you've dealt with a lot of shots, you start to see patterns and understand. Hey, well, I did this to this shot. A couple thousand shots ago, I found out this worked, and now I can apply that to this shot that's here. But yeah, no, it is constantly changing, constantly shifting. You're constantly pushing yourself as an artist too, right? So there's always new stuff happening, new techniques. AI is coming into the picture. HDR is obviously coming into the picture. So technology is advancing rapidly. The role of the colorist is changing all the time. So yeah, definitely exciting, and never the same thing every day.
Can we get into that a little bit? So how do you approach a project? It's not a tailor-made thing. You can't really use a cookie-cutter approach for each of these projects that you work on, right?
Oh, never, because, there's kind of this idea that a colorist maybe sits in front of their panel and, has all this time and just sits there and just makes art, right? Well, it's not always that way. Sometimes I have to do 6 projects in a day. Sometimes I'm jumping between a bright, happy commercial and then revisions to a dark, moody short film, and then something wild on a music video. And sometimes it's the same, it's like that for multiple days in a row, and then and another day I'll be doing a feature all day long. So it's totally different. And how you approach every project is so very different, because some projects need a kind of, a heavy, well, I wouldn't say heavy-handed approach, but they're coming to me because they're expecting me to kind of transform the project. And then sometimes projects are done so well, they're thought out so well in the beginning stages that it takes a lighter touch. It doesn't take as much, for me to finish it out, basically. So it really is totally dependent on a project, on its mood. It depends how it's shot. Like, I did a bourbon ad with, a lot of, sort of golden liquid against a dark black background. And that takes a very different approach than when I'm doing a lifestyle spot with, all sorts of different, foliage and skin and skies and all this different stuff. So it's a completely different approach for each project. But I think something that's common to every approach is that you have to know, what kind of the original intentions were, and what the director and the DP and the agency or whomever is involved, what their hopes and dreams were. So I think every project for me, it starts with talking to those people, having a really in-depth conversation where I really force myself to listen and to know what they want. And, they tell me that in terms of, sometimes they'll use adjectives or references, and it's my job to take those feelings and emotions and moods that they see in their piece, and to take that and put it through the filter of all my experience, and to be able to take that vision of theirs and to turn it into something tangible on the screen. And I think that takes a lot of years of experience to kind of figure out what is the best way to do that. But that's where it starts, right? It starts with understanding what their vision is, then it kind of progresses from there into seeing what they actually shot. Can I do what they want with what they shot? I mean, sometimes people will say, well, I want this to look like Batman, but it can't, right? They didn't have enough production design, they didn't shoot in the right cameras, they didn't have enough lighting, so you know what they want, you look at the footage, you push it around, and then you start to become really, really fast at what I call debuting looks, which is trying a whole bunch of different color schemes and approaches and doing them all really fast, finding what works and what doesn't. Maybe it's some of this and a little bit of that. And you start to kind of mold something, kind of roughly, keeping in mind what their original intent was. And sometimes where you end up is kind of maybe further from their original intent, but yet it's accomplishing their purpose. And I think that's where experience and being an artist kind of really comes into it, that you're able to put your own stuff into it, but you have to take their vision as well and try to kind of marry that together until you get, somewhere where everybody's going to be happy. Because sometimes you have to compromise too. Sometimes the client wants it really bright and you don't want it to be there, but you have to go there anyway. So, there's so much to it, but that's kind of some of the basics of the approach. And let me know if that answered your question.
I understand, absolutely. And I love that you say you get them to a place where you're trying to get them to, that they initially, they bring the idea to you initially and you know where they're trying to get. And sometimes maybe they can't describe it from a creative perspective like you can when it comes to the coloring, but you get them there and you see their response. And that just comes to show that you put in the work when no one's looking, and you understand the craft and what they need, because you've worked through this already. You've put in that time. You've made your mistakes. And that's the thing that a lot of people need to understand. As a professional, you can't be spending a lot of time trying to make all these little tweaks, a little more of this, a little bit of that. Sometimes you need to get really fast, find what works. And in doing that, you produce what is needed, and that's what they're looking for. Really, that's what it is. They're looking for that. And sometimes it can take away some of that creative freedom, but you can't just be spending all your time on one thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, sometimes, once again, you have to take this idea of what a colorist does and match it to reality. And you wish you had more time. And sometimes I think the people who get to noodle in their basement on a shot or on a project for a long time, sometimes that works out really well and their project turns out great. But when you have deadlines and stuff has to get done. You don't have the luxury of that, and so it is equally as important to be fast as it is to be good. And I actually think those two things aren't even separate when you become a professional of this, and you're no longer just in your basement, screwing around in the free version of Resolve or whatever. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Or you'll be flipping pancakes and you'll always be in that basement doing it just like that, because it doesn't work for most people. So it's like you said, you got to be fast and you got to be good. And at some point, those two don't separate.
No. And it's sometimes being fast is more important than being good, because you've got 300 shots to do in a day or 300 shots to do in 2 hours. And it has to be the very best that you can do, within the time that you have. So, that's definitely part of the expectations. And the bigger your projects get, the less time you have, which is really frustrating, right? I mean, I wish it weren't that way, but that is simply the way it is. Because as from my understanding, if you look at the people doing the higher end work, which is what I want to do, which is the feature films and the commercials you see every day and the Netflix originals or whatever, there's somewhere in the range of probably 500 to 1,000 people in the entire world who do stuff at that level. And, as you get into that level, the expectations, just they raise as far as how quickly can you get through material. And that's kind of crazy, and I kind of wish it weren't like that, but heck, that's the way it goes and what you have to do. So if you're a beginner, keep in mind that you're going to have to really work on your speed. That's going to have to become a priority of yours, so that way when you get to the higher levels, you're ready.
Absolutely, and I'm just taking all that in because it makes a lot of sense. So let me ask you this, Brian. What role is automation playing today? What role will it be playing in the future? Is this something that you feel will be trying to take the job of a colorist? Is this something that, I don't think it's something that can actually be replaced, the job of a colorist.
Yeah, automation is coming, but it's coming in a very specific way that I don't think is ever going to get rid of the need for a colorist, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, just as it's helpful in terms of shot matching and things like that. But the reality is as a colorist, you make a whole lot of decisions very quickly, right? Like, let's just say I'm doing a makeup ad, right? And I'm working very specifically on, let's say, a model's face, right? I am going to make so many decisions so quickly about, what is beauty, right? Like, how lifted should her eyes be? What tone should her skin have? Does she look, too Caucasian, too black? What shape, what contouring is beautiful here, right? And you're making, in a case like that, and I'm using that because that's an easier case to make, because often on ads like that or with products, you're making so many little decisions and you're really taking the image and splitting into so many different pieces and affecting it. You're making so many decisions that are based on your humanity in many ways, and what is beautiful and what is your culture's description of beauty. And so, no machine is ever going to be able to do that. And you also have to look at AI and the development for AI and how big is its customer base, right? So they're building AI for Amazon. They could potentially have every person in the world could be a customer, right? So they can build AI for that, and it becomes cost effective isn't the right word, but what am I trying to say? They can get a return on their investment, right? If there are only 500 to 1,000 colorists in the world who are doing high-end work, and yet the path to automating that is so massive, because there's so much subjectivity and artistic value in that, there simply isn't the return on investment for a company to completely automate that, right? So that's why I don't think the need for a colorist is going anywhere soon, because it's simply not a great financial investment for a company to try to replace 500 to 1,000 employees, right? And would it even do a better job than a colorist? No. So I think you're going to see that take over a lot of things in editorial and maybe in terms of project organization and, setting up, color spaces or things like that. But it's not going to replace that subjective artistic nature that a colorist builds over the course of many times decades.
Can you hear me, Brian?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the same reason you can't, automate music. You can't automate something that's sort of found from an emotional place or a place of emotion. Same thing with your job as a colorist. You can't really automate that because when a scene is presented, you have to be able to gauge what's taking place from an emotional perspective. What's the atmosphere? And, with automation, that's not something that they're going to be able to replace, with your job. It's something that you need to. You can't automate that. That's going to be something you can't really fabricate.
Well, absolutely. And every colorist is very different too. I don't know if you follow any on Instagram, but it's funny. I do, obviously, and I look at a lot of people's work, and I don't know if I could ever get to where some of them are because that's just not me, right? That's just not my aesthetic or the way I see the world, and I just don't think there's any way that a computer is ever going to be able to automate that or even figure it out or come up with something new. Right. I mean, that's so yeah, ultimately I'm not, I think automation is coming for some other jobs in the industry, but not necessarily for some of the higher skill, higher artistic, certainly ends of the spectrum.
Very nice, Brian. So let me ask you this. What does your day-to-day look like? You're living the life of a colorist. Somebody listening to this wants to do the same. What does your schedule look like day to day? What does that process play out like? Can you go ahead and give us a little bit of details on that? How does it play out?
Well, it's funny. Every day is different, right? Like some days I'm working on a feature film, and that day, I have a 20-minute reel, and that's what I do that day. But then some days are not like that at all. Like today, for example, I'm working on a show for Chip and Joanna Gaines for their new Magnolia Network. So I kind of fixed that out. I did revisions on a spot for the new Toyota Tundra, the 2022, and it's a completely different vibe. I've got obviously I've got this interview with you, and you get asked to do stuff like that. Right after this, I've got a phone call with the director where we're going to talk about his short film and the approach that he wants. So, your day-to-day changes so much, but a lot of it involves it's fine, and it depends what sort of facility you're in too, right? Like at a big facility like Company 3 or something like that, there's a lot of jobs separated between a lot of people. But I'm the only colorist in my facility, so I'm both helping sort of the setting up the project, so ingesting the footage, organizing, doing all that, and then doing the delivery, outputting the clips, and making sure there's no quality control issues. So I'm doing all of that, and I'm grading, and I'm talking to a director and a DP about tomorrow's project, and I'm doing revisions on the project I did yesterday, and I'm grading the project that I have to do today. So it's about being able to juggle a lot of things, trying to maintain focus. And just being kind of adaptable and, being able to spend, many hours on a 30-second, spot because I had that time, but then later in the day having to have a completely different approach because I have to knock out 200 shots in that same amount of time that I had to do 10 shots earlier in the day. So, your day-to-day is really kind of crazy, but it basically involves having to fix what happened yesterday, worry about, or address everything has to be done today, and then prep for tomorrow, and to do that all at the exact same time.
That's a lot of juggling, and that's that. But it's also back to what you said. Your perspective is that there's always something new and exciting, and that's what keeps you going. I imagine. Is that what keeps you going?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you never know what the next project is going to take, and you're always pushing yourself and looking at other people and what they're doing, and just trying to, you're trying to chase that elusive, perfect image, perfect project, and realize you're never going to get there, but you're always chasing it, trying new things, and sometimes stressing and worrying about it a little too much, staying up late at night. But yeah, no, definitely never an end to new stuff to learn and the new ways to approach something similar. Right, you may get a commercial that looks very similar to something else that you did, but you need to approach it in a new and a different way. And plus, you're always building clients too, right? I mean, that's the key part to being a colorist that we haven't talked about, is that you can have all the artistic skill in the world, but if you can't be kind to people, and you can't do what they want and be willing to bend when you don't want to bend, and talk people through their problems and through their issues. And sometimes, I've heard colorists refer to it as you're kind of like the bartender of the film industry. And I think it's very true. Oftentimes, you have clients sitting with you or over a live grade, and they're telling you about their life and their struggles with this project. And so, you're building friendships and relationships at the same time that you're working. And your ability to navigate that is so important. So, all those things kind of come together to kind of describe what the job of a colorist is.
Absolutely, and I love that you touched on that. You're going to have to be able to establish a relationship with the director, the writer, the producer, the cinematographer, and they're going to have to be able to feel vulnerable enough to share the information that they need to allow this project to be brought into fruition. This is something that you need to be able to facilitate and engage yourself so that the process works as best as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you can't maintain that, they're going to let you go, because they need somebody they can work with, somebody that they like, and that's just how it goes. You never know what it is, but it has something to do with that. And, it's like, if we can wrap what you said, you got to be quick, you got to be good, you got to be great with people, and you'll probably succeed.
Yes, absolutely. I think you hit the key, a couple of the key things there. And then the other part of it, maybe if you want to add a fourth one, which we won't touch on because it'll get nerdy real fast, but you have to be a technician in the highest sense. I mean, I think other than maybe really high-end VFX, colorist has to know the tech side of things better than anyone, right? I mean, an editor can edit in Premiere and kind of drag around clips and kind of muddle through if they have to, right? I mean, as a colorist, you're dealing with the biggest images, the highest resolution at full quality on the best gear. You have a massive system to be able to do that in real time and respond, to clients' wishes immediately. You have to understand the signal chain. You have to understand how computers work. You have to understand the entire broadcast infrastructure, the whole workflow around, the different specs you might need to hit. So you need to know the technical side of the industry at a level, I would argue, maybe even at the highest level of anybody in the entire post-production chain. And that part is really exciting, really neat, and also just something that people have to realize that it is art, but it's art being served through technology. And you have to know the technology really well, because it serves the art, it informs the art, and if you screw it up, it ruins the art. So, that's the other side of it that I think is really important, that people have to grasp, have to learn, have to spend many, many years fully understanding, because if they make that mistake, they screw up the entire project, they ruin their client relationship. That's happened many times, and stuff is changing so fast, so you have to have this big, broad understanding and knowledge base that you can build on, as well as all the new things, kind of come in. So that's another huge component of the job.
What keeps you going today? You just explained your schedule, and it's jam-packed, and it looks like it's hard to fit anything additional in there besides living a normal life outside of that. What were you doing? I know it might look different back then than it does today, but what were you using to learn your material? Was it taking courses? Were you watching videos on YouTube? How many hours of sleep were you getting at night?
Got you. One thing that I like to say is that when I was first learning how to do this, I don't know, 8-10 years ago, I believe that I watched every single color grading tutorial that existed on the internet at that point. Because I was trying to figure it out. I didn't come through the Hollywood system, which I think is a major advantage to many people, but not everybody gets it. So, that's one of the things that I think is hopefully encouraging about my story to other people, is that, you can learn it yourself. You can do good work, without, having, been an intern at Company 3 or some, major post-production facility like that. But, I started as a cinematographer. So, that really opened my eyes to lenses and cameras and codecs and lighting and, all those sorts of things. I think that was a great place to start. So I learned a lot there, and that's really how I came into grading, is because, I wanted to make my images look better, and I didn't know how, and I needed to understand the relationship between those two things. So yeah, I took lots of courses. At the time there was lynda.com, and there was Ripple Training, and there was Mixing Light, and there's all these these very standard ways that someone can kind of learn to become a colorist. But a lot of people on Instagram reach out to me, and they ask me for tips and, hey, what would you tell me to learn? And the reality is that you can't learn without doing. And I think the best thing that I did by far was I built clients to the point where I had projects. I had never-ending projects, and I'm still like that. I'm at the point now where I have more projects than I can possibly do. But that really becomes the way to learn, right? Because, and I know maybe it's not the same analogy, but if you're trying to learn to be a golfer, right, you can only watch so many tutorials, right? You have to pick up the club and swing it. And I get really frustrated with people who think that I'm going to be giving them some sort of tip that's going to, all of a sudden turn them into a great colorist, when they haven't spent the years making the mistakes and kind of building this big volume of techniques that they can use on shots and projects. And that's really, I think, where you learn and where you grow and things like that. Learning now is a very difficult thing, because when you have 6 projects on a day, it's very hard to learn. And so I feel very blessed now that when I do learn things, I'm always learning things on real projects, right? So people who are beginners, I want them to really appreciate the fact that they're able to learn without the pressure necessarily on them, and to be able to take the time and stuff. Everything I learn now happens on someone's project, right? I'll try a new technique or a new preset or a new color management system, and maybe the client doesn't even know, but I'm experimenting on their project, and I'm experimenting constantly, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But that's really, when you reach a certain level and you're expected to do so much so fast, you have to learn on the job, and you have to push yourself constantly. That becomes a little bit tiring after a while, but that's kind of the nature of the beast. And it's neat that as you go through the levels, how you learn, how you approach it, it keeps changing, and it never stays the same. So it's interesting to learn in a different way than I did early in my career, but it's certainly still exciting, and so hopefully that answers your question.
You can only be in that development phase for so long before you got to ask yourself, when will I take that leap, that dive? I love that you talk about your results-driven lifestyle, where you're delivering for your clients and you're working on these projects and you're learning as you're doing. That's the best way to learn, is learning by doing, just constantly working through things. And it's even better that you're doing it for your clients. You're able to stay that busy, and you've put in that work. You've definitely put in those 10,000 hours.
Yeah, I would think so.
And it's great that when that opportunity does present itself, where you can get creative, something new that's exciting, you understand the material at a different level. So it's not such a scattered, messy process, because when you don't understand these things, it can get messy.
It can, yeah, and sometimes it still does, right? And you're still learning and in a process of growth. And it's funny. A lot of people, I think, don't realize that grading is an entire career, right? Sure, you can be the one-man band and just kind of try to do it at the end of your project in Premiere or whatever, but that's fine. But just like in editing, there's an entire career, right? Heck, even if you want to be a roto artist, there's an entire career into just doing rotoscoping for VFX work, right? So grading really is its own career, and it's neat. It's neat to specialize, and sometimes I miss the other parts of it. But at some point, you really do. You have to make the decision that if you want to do higher level work, you have to specialize and you have to choose. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize, is that if they want to get, these results that they see and they like, they may have to specialize. They're going to have to not be a one-man band, and they're going to have to, accept the fact that the further they go along in their career, the less credit they get for a finished project, because the number of people working on it expands, and your part of it becomes smaller and smaller. But that's kind of just the way it is, and that's the price you pay. And ultimately, heck, you make a big difference in a project.
What's next? Would you want to make the move to Hollywood? Would it be to open up your own school, teach colorists your craft before you move on to maybe something different? If you do, what would that look like for you?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think, the thing that's I think one of the really neat things about the filmmaking industry in general is that it feels like you're kind of playing roulette, or you're gambling all the time that, hey, is this going to be the project that gets me to the next level, right? And so I think it's funny. I've read a lot about how companies like companies that make smartphones and such, how they build they've really cracked the code for how mentally you can get kind of addicted to things and keep scrolling and those sort of things. And the filmmaking industry, to me, has a lot of parallels to that, because you're always kind of gambling and hoping that this is going to give you your next break, blah blah blah. And so for me, I think you're always hoping that the project you're working on now is going to get you in with the right person, who's going to get you into a bigger feature film or a larger commercial, or into doing a Netflix original or something like that. So I think in the filmmaking world, you're always playing this game of moving up levels. And so I think that's the thing that I'm the most excited about, that I'm trying to do, is that I'm trying to move up levels. I have this funny thing, just with myself. I have this bet going that I will not pay for a Netflix subscription for myself until I have graded a Netflix original, right? So that's out there. I want to do bigger, higher end production stuff. I want to do real blockbusters someday. I want to grade Stranger Things. I want to do Super Bowl commercials, right? So for me, it's about moving up those levels, and I've moved up levels, which is really cool, and it happens really fast, and it's neat. And so people who are just getting into it need to realize that they need to put in the years and build the relationships over years and years, and keep doing good projects, even if they're at a lower level, because then all of a sudden you're going to break through, and you need to be ready at that point, right? So I'm trying to be ready right now, whether it's learning HDR, which is a massive deal for a colorist and for the entire industry. They're trying to learn that to be ready, so that and then still just trying to learn every day to be faster, to for things to be artistically at a higher level, so that when the bigger thing comes, I'm ready for it, and I can walk right into it. I always, I try to use the sports analogy a lot. It's funny, like in baseball, when they bring up when they bring a prospect up into the major leagues, that prospect doesn't become major league ready the moment they put on the Yankees uniform and take their first at bat, right? Nothing magical happens. They become a major league star in that lower level, and then they get the opportunity, right? So you have to be major league caliber at whatever level you are at, so that when the big opportunity comes, you can knock it out of the park, right? And so that's where I'm trying to go. That's where I'm trying to be. It's no longer as necessary to be in LA, there's certain things about, I don't necessarily love LA, but would I have to move there? Maybe someday. But you can do stuff from anywhere, but you also need relationships. And a lot of the work that I was talking to you about, the Netflix originals, the big blockbusters and stuff, those are really, really hard to get if you are not in LA, right? So I'm kind of trying to be at that level right now, and then let's see what happens down the line.
Absolutely. And that all makes sense. I think one of the pros of being around here would be to establish one-on-one relationships with people you could meet who are working on projects you want to jump on. There's more filmmakers, a lot of them gravitate towards this area, but more than anything, it's like what you said, you got to stay ready. You got to always stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And it's like the baseball analogy you used, it's at the end of the day, we all start at this level and you make your way up, and that's it. There's no fabrications behind it. There's no mystery behind it. There's no luck involved. You cannot expect any respect that is not created from the work and results you've been given, and word of mouth carries.
There's no shortcuts whatsoever. Everybody's trying to get LUTs. People ask me if I can give them, LUTs, which are kind of presets that people can use. But yeah, no, there is absolutely no shortcuts or anything. You're so right, and I'm glad you said that.
Brian, I really appreciate you for being on the show today. I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by your story, hearing you come from Alaska, making your way out here, ending up in St. Louis, and now working full-time as a colorist, doing exactly what you put in the work to do. You made it happen, and it's real inspirational, and what separates you from most colorists is a lot of the filmmaking process outside of just being in the editing room. You started off as a cinematographer, you've worked with sets, you know what it's like having these families, these film crews that you have to build a relationship with, and it's very family-esque while the film's being shot, and there's a lot of vulnerability and a lot of speaking with each other and working with each other, and you understand that, and it's real inspirational to have had you on, to have heard your story, and to see where you are today, and I'm really excited to see where you'll end up in the future.
Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it and I enjoyed it.
All right, Brian, thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.